For most of modern history, the flow between Canada and the United States had a certain balance. But in 2026, a growing number of Canadians are looking south and moving. Not tourists, not snowbirds chasing winter sun. Working-age Canadians, often skilled and educated, packing up their lives and crossing the border to build a future in a different country. People who never imagined leaving Canada are now seriously weighing it, running the numbers, and in a rising number of cases, going. Today we're counting down 10 reasons this is happening. The real, practical forces pushing and pulling Canadians toward the United States. And let me be crystal clear before we start, because this is a sensitive topic. This is not a video about which country is better. It's not about politics. It's not me telling anyone to leave. Both countries have real advantages and real problems, and I'll be honest about both the whole way through. This is simply an honest look at why this trend is happening, because the reasons say a great deal about what's gone wrong in Canada, and what Canada would need to fix to make people want to stay. Number 1 might not be the reason you expect. Stay with me. First, why does the comparison with the US matter so much, specifically? Because it's the most direct test Canada faces. The United States is right next door. It shares a language, a broadly similar culture, and deeply integrated economies. For a skilled Canadian, moving there is one of the most accessible major moves in the world, far easier than emigrating somewhere unfamiliar. That accessibility makes it a mirror. When your closest, most similar neighbor offers a noticeably different deal on the things that matter, pay, housing, opportunity, people notice, and some act. So Canadians leaving for the US isn't really a story about America being wonderful. It's a story about the gap, the growing difference between what the two countries offer ordinary people, and what that gap reveals about Canada's own trajectory. And to keep this honest from the start, the US has serious downsides Canadians rightly worry about, and we'll cover them. This isn't grass is greener cheerleading. It's an honest accounting of a real trade a lot of people are now weighing. Let's count down. Number 10. The housing math. We've spent this whole channel on Canadian housing, and a major pull south is simply that. In many American cities, the relationship between home prices and incomes is less brutal than in Canada's expensive cities. Not everywhere. Plenty of US cities are expensive too. But a Canadian priced out of Toronto or Vancouver forever can look at certain American cities and see a path to actually owning a home on their income. When ownership is possible there and impossible here, that's a powerful pull. Number 9. The pay gap in skilled fields. In a range of professions, tech, medicine, engineering, finance, skilled trades, the same qualifications and the same work often pay more in the US. This has been true for a long time, but as Canadian costs climbed, the gap started to matter more. When you can earn meaningfully more for the same work, and it costs less to live in some of the places offering it, the math becomes hard to ignore for anyone with the mobility to act on it. Number 8. Lower taxes on income. Broadly, income taxes can be lower in many parts of the US than in Canada. For a high earner especially, that difference compounds year after year into a very large sum. Now, and this is the honest part, lower taxes come with a trade-off. You often get less in public services in return, and we'll get to that, because it cuts the other way. But for someone doing the raw arithmetic on take-home pay, the lower tax burden is a real and significant pull. Number 7. The cost of everyday goods. Many everyday things, certain groceries, fuel, various consumer goods, some services, can be cheaper in parts of the US. For a household counting every dollar, a lower general cost of living on top of higher pay and cheaper housing stacks into a meaningfully different monthly reality. It's not universal, and it varies enormously by region, but the perception, often backed by real experience, is that a dollar stretches further in a lot of American places. Number 6. Career ceiling and opportunity. Beyond just pay, some Canadians feel the ceiling is higher in the US. Bigger companies, bigger markets, more capital, more room to build something ambitious. For entrepreneurs and people in fast-moving fields especially, the sheer scale of the American market is a pull. If your ambition outgrows the opportunities available at home, the larger economy next door starts to look like where your ideas can actually go. Number 5. The weather and lifestyle factor. Let's be human about it. Some of it is simply the winters. A meaningful number of Canadians move south partly to escape the long, hard Canadian winter for a warmer climate. This has always been true for retirees, but increasingly younger working people are factoring lifestyle and climate into the decision too. When you're already weighing a move for economic reasons, and it's warm becomes a genuine tiebreaker. Number 4. Frustration with services they're already paying for. Here's where it gets nuanced and important. Canadians accept higher taxes in exchange for public services. That's the deal. But when people struggle to access those services, long waits, difficulty finding a family doctor, strained systems, the deal starts to feel one-sided. And this is the crucial part. This isn't really a pull toward the US, it's a push from Canada. People aren't leaving because American services are obviously better. American healthcare has its own serious, well-known problems. They're leaving because they feel they're paying full price for a Canadian deal that isn't delivering what it promised. Number 3. The sense that the future is brighter elsewhere. This is less about any single number and more about a feeling, the belief, rightly or wrongly, that the trajectory is better in the US. When people look at their prospects in Canada and see the broken ladders this channel has documented, and then look south and perceive more upward momentum, that perception drives decisions. And perception matters enormously in migration. People move toward where they believe the future is, and a growing number no longer believe it's in Canada. Number 2. They already know someone who went. Migration builds on itself, and this is one of the most powerful forces of all. Once a Canadian's friend, sibling, or former colleague moves south and reports back that it worked out, better pay, a home they could afford, a good life, it stops being a scary leap into the unknown and becomes a proven path. The first movers are the hardest. After that, each success story makes the next person's decision easier because they have someone on the other side telling them it's real. This is exactly the mechanism, in reverse, that we saw dimming the dream of moving to Canada. The most powerful advertisement is the honest report of someone who already made the leap. And increasingly, the reports coming back from Canadians who went south are, "It's better here for what I do." That word of mouth, person to person, is quietly building a pathway, and pathways, once established, carry a lot of people. So what's number 1? What's the deepest reason Canadians are heading south? The one underneath all the practical factors. Number 1. The feeling that hard work pays off more for the same effort. Here's why this is number 1, and why it isn't really any single item on the list. Because every reason above, the housing, the pay, the taxes, the opportunity, adds up to one core feeling. For the same effort, I get more of a life over there. That's the real driver. It's not that Canadians hate their country. Most who leave love it and feel the loss deeply, exactly as we saw in the emigration video. It's that they've come to feel the fundamental exchange rate between effort and reward has become worse in Canada than in the country right next door. They work just as hard, they're just as skilled, and they can see, or believe they can see, that the same work buys a bigger life a few hours' drive south. Once someone feels that, staying can start to feel like accepting less than they're worth. And here's the honest, balanced truth of it, and it's the whole point of this video. This is not really a story about America being a paradise. It absolutely is not. And the US has enormous problems Canadians are right to weigh, which we'll get to. It's a story about Canada's effort to reward deal deteriorating to the point where its own people, looking at their nearest neighbor, feel they're getting a worse return on their lives. The pull south is just the visible shadow of a problem at home. The number 1 reason Canadians are fleeing to the US isn't America. It's the erosion of the promise that hard work pays off in Canada. That's the shock, and it should sting in a useful way. A country doesn't lose people to its neighbor because the neighbor is perfect. It loses them because it stopped offering its own people a good enough return on their effort, and they can see, right across an open border, what that return looks like somewhere else. Now, the balance I promised, because this genuinely matters and no honest video skips it. The US is not a promised land, and Canadians weighing this need the full picture. American healthcare can be ruinously expensive and is tied to employment in ways that create real vulnerability. A serious illness can be financially catastrophic in a way it isn't in Canada. Social supports are often thinner. There are real concerns about safety in some places, and about instability that many Canadians deeply value being free from. And the lower taxes come, genuinely, at the cost of services that Canada provides, and that people miss when they're gone. Many Canadians who move south discover they miss things they took for granted, a certain kind of stability, safety, and social safety net. Some come back. The grass is not uniformly greener. It's greener in specific, measurable ways. Pay, housing in some markets, and browner in others that matter enormously, like health security. So the honest verdict is this. For some people, in some fields, at some life stages, the American deal genuinely works out better, and they're rational to take it. For others, what Canada offers, the safety, the stability, the health care that won't bankrupt you, is worth more than the higher pay, and they're right to stay. It's a real trade with real costs on both sides, not a simple upgrade. Anyone who tells you it's obviously better either way is selling something. So where does this leave us? The point of this video was never to encourage anyone to leave, or to claim America is better. It was to understand a trend, and the understanding is uncomfortable but clear. Canadians are heading south not because they've fallen out of love with Canada, but because the country's effort to reward deal has slipped relative to its nearest neighbor. Fix that deal, the housing, the wages, the sense that hard work pays off, and the pull weakens, because most people would genuinely rather stay if staying made sense. That's the real takeaway, and it's oddly hopeful. Canada doesn't need to outcompete the US on everything. It needs to make sure that for ordinary, hard-working people, staying is a good deal again. The country's advantages, the safety, the stability, the social supports, are real and valuable. They're just being outweighed, for some people, by an affordability crisis that's fixable. Which leaves the question this channel keeps arriving at. What does it say about a country when its own people start looking across the border and doing the math on leaving? So I want to hear from you, and please keep it civil and personal, because this one gets heated. Did you move from Canada to the US? Was it worth it? And what do you miss? Are you thinking about it, and what's holding you? Did you go and come back? And for those staying, what makes Canada worth it for you? Tell me in the comments below. I read every one, and the real stories from people who've actually made this choice are worth more than any comparison chart. And if you want clear-eyed breakdowns of the forces reshaping life across Canada, subscribe to Canada Insider. There's a lot more of this story to tell.